when I call your name. Every fear is banished from here. When you call my name, I'll come running, running to you. And you say, come to me. Spread your wings, catch the wind, he's carrying you.
Hello and welcome to this month's Jerusalem Dispatch, ICEJ UK. That stands for the International Christian Embassy Jerusalem UK branch. And in this programme we will be marking International Holocaust Memorial Day and what ICEJ UK is doing to combat the rise of anti-Semitism, as well as helping the surviving Holocaust survivors in Israel. And in this programme today, I'm joined by Tim Collis, who is an ICEJ UK rep, as well as being an historian, together with Mike Kerry's in charge of the tours done on behalf of ICJ. So welcome back to the programme, Mike. And I mean, it's been quite a year, 2021 for ICJ. And last month we had the excellent Jerusalem Dispatch live event with Danielle Moore, who heads up the Christian Friends of the Jewish Agency. Just unpack how important that relationship is between ICJ and the Jewish Agency.
I thought the webinar was an outstanding event, and Danielle obviously representing the Jewish Agency, and the Jewish Agency is an agency that ICEJ works so closely with. Howard Flower, who's responsible for Aliyah from St. Petersburg actually, works very closely with her, as does Nicole Yoder. And we actually couldn't achieve what we do in respect of Aliyah, and as you know, we've brought thousands of Jews back to Israel over many years now. And we do that because of the relationship we have with the Jewish Agency, and also the respect that the Jewish Agency has for ICEJ. There's a great deal of esteem both ways in respect of ICEJ and the Jewish Agency.
Excellent. And Tim, warm welcome to the programme. I know this is your first time on the programme. You are a rep with ICEJ UK, but also you're a historian, and your knowledge of medieval history is something to behold. Can you share with us how you came to faith in the Lord Jesus Christ, how he's given you a kind of love for Israel and the Jewish people, and your role with ICEJ UK? Three questions in one.
Oh, that's right, yes. Yeah, my journey to faith in Jesus Christ really took place when I was about 7 years old, when my father was in the RAF. He was posted to RAF Geilenkirchen, which is a scene of much fighting in the World War II. And so, around about 7 years old, 8 years old, I found myself in the choir. I don't know how I did that on the camp. And one of the things I remember so clearly was singing the lovely hymns, but also singing psalms. And this meant so much to me. And through those singing the hymns and the psalms, I just really fell in love with Jesus, and in a very simple, childlike way. And I just remember so clearly at one point thinking, I just want to be with Jesus, want to love him, want to. Even the point I wanted to, when I saw pictures of him hanging on the cross, I just wanted to hang with him there on the cross in a very simple way. And my journey really, when we came back to England, I gave my heart to the Lord formally and in a very committed way when I read a journal called Journey into Life, where I gave my life to Jesus, and feel many people have actually given their lives to Jesus. And then that was really a very close relationship with Jesus, which I'm still on today. And as for my love for Israel, having spent some time in Germany, I was always fascinated by the warfare that took place, and spent much of my time in in the trenches around in Geilenkirchen. And one of my favourite books was, when I was growing up, was a book called The Password is Courage, and that was all about a British sergeant called Charles Coward, who was actually a prisoner of war, and he was a prisoner of war in a prison war camp very, very close to Auschwitz, but he was used to actually save hundreds and hundreds of Jews. How he did it, very miraculously, hundreds of Jews, and he's now mentioned in the Righteous of Nations, Righteous of the Gentiles in Yad Vashem for the work he did in saving Jews. It's an incredible read, The Password of Courage. It's a great book.
Fabulous. So let's have a look and remind ourselves of some of the work and the ministry carried out by ICEJ UK in the year that was 2021.
In 2021 was an amazing year for the International Christian Embassy right here in Jerusalem. Thanks to the help from you and many other Christians from around the world, we could impact the nation of Israel, the very city of Jerusalem, in an even greater way than last year. Please have a look to what the Lord did through us in 2021.
2021 has been a great year in ICEJ Aid. At the Haifa home, we've been able to upgrade the shared living space and physiotherapy room. We've also installed an elevator in the new building, and we're just about to begin taking in new residents. Also, we've expanded our outreach to survivors outside the home through a call center. Already, that call center receives 2,800 calls a month. Another milestone in 2021 was when we delivered our 150th shelter to protect vulnerable communities. 42 of those were ordered just this year, and that number continues to climb. We're also really excited that we were able to help strengthen many more families through food packages, home repairs, vocational training, or scholarships that help them towards a brighter future.
I want to thank you for helping us make 2021 an amazing year. This year, ICEJ helped more than 3,000 immigrants return to their biblical homeland. We've reached the total of over 163,000 during the history of ICEJ. And while many people are shutting down because of COVID, we've had 2 amazing years of a virtual Feast of Tabernacles. This last Feast of Tabernacles, we had almost 5,000 participants from over 100 nations. While the world's shutting down because of COVID, God has given ICEJ the grace to flourish and do more and be more. So let's celebrate together an amazing 2021.
In our international work over the last year, we experienced a paradox, because normally we would travel a lot, but we couldn't do that because of the lockdowns and the travel restrictions. And yet, we have seen a great improvement of communication, both in quality and quantity. In these online meetings, we were able to have good communication with many offices which we have around the world, and some new people joined us. So we were able to start new offices in several countries of Latin America, Eastern Europe, and Africa. Many other people joined us for our numerous prayer initiatives, starting with the weekly global prayer gatherings and also these amazing prayer chains at the beginning of each Hebrew month, the Rosh Chodesh. The Lord has used this crisis to raise awareness about His plan for Israel and for the nations. And we are so grateful that we can be part of that.
Another important moment for our ministry came in May when Israel faced its 4th rocket war with Hamas in Gaza in the past 12 years. There were hundreds of rockets flying every day into Israel, where the security threat is growing. So it's more than 150 bomb shelters that we're now helping Israel protect itself. We're also giving firefighting equipment and fire protection suits to the first responders to help them protect their communities. So the Christian Embassy is doing all these things to help Israel keep safe.
We had a great impact this year in Israel, and together we can do so much more in the future. We are so grateful for your support, for your generous donations to the ICEJ that has made it possible for us to increase our work at the ICEJ, our Aliyah work, our Holocaust survivor work, bomb shelters, and educating the church, connecting you to Israel, informing you what is happening right here in Israel, but also from a biblical perspective. So thank you once again for your great support. We are very thankful for that, and may God do great things for you also.
So you have seen what we have been doing in 2021 here in Israel and also right here in the city of Jerusalem. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for your support, for standing with us in prayer, in your finances, and also in your support in your country. And I want to wish you the blessing of the Lord as you are standing with Israel and as you are blessing God's chosen people. I do ask you to prayerfully consider also to stand in 2022 on the side of the International Christian Embassy, your embassy right here in the land of Israel.
A great overview there of the ministry of ICEJ UK over 2021. Mike, we're in this programme to mark the 77th anniversary of International Holocaust Memorial Day, which happened on the 27th of January 1945. Why is it so important that Christians mark the Holocaust Memorial Day and also remember it as well?
The Holocaust is something that we should never forget. It's a stain on human history. It began with prejudice, it moved on to discrimination, and then incarceration, and finally on to slaughter. There was a slow burn across Nazi Germany. And I think that's a lesson to us all, that it started in a small way and developed. And there's anti-Jewish sentiment around in our country. There's anti-Jewish sentiment throughout Europe and throughout the world. And we can look at the Holocaust, and we can mention names like Adolf Hitler, Adolf Eichmann, Reinhard Heydrich, and people like that who were the main instigators of the final solution. And we can reflect on it and know that there were lots of evil people joined them. But the problem I see it is that there was lots of ordinary people joined them. There was the rank and file, people who just did their task without question, just acquiesced and complied with what was going on. And it just beggars belief that people could actually walk people to the gas chambers, tell them to strip off and go and have a shower, and then drop Zyklon B in and annihilate them. It was the most industrialized mass destruction, genocide of human beings that this world has ever known. And if we don't remember it, then we're doing a disservice to following generations. I think in Isaiah 56:5 it talks about memorial in a name, and that's where Yad Vashem comes from. And obviously there's the Holocaust Memorial Museum on Mount Herzl in Jerusalem. And that is a place that once you visit that and have a look at all the exhibits there and walk out into the sunlight at the end, you will never forget the Holocaust. And as Christians, we need to promote that.
No, absolutely. And Tim, you're an expert in kind of Jewish medieval history, particularly with the Jewish community that lived here during the Middle Ages. Can you share with us how what happened to the Jewish people in the Middle Ages in this country was pretty much a forerunner for what we saw in the Holocaust in the last century?
Absolutely, Simon. We see that there was a pattern that took place from about the 1250s that really sowed the seeds of the Holocaust, and it's almost as if the Nazis actually adopted the pattern that was set in the. Because England did have a Holocaust of its own, where Jews were slaughtered by their communities in the Middle Ages. And really there's three elements to that pattern. The first one was a statute of Jewry, which was issued in the 1250s, which basically segregated the Jews from the rest of society. It banned them mixing with the rest of society. It stripped them of liberties, where they could live. And one of the most awesome parts that can really be connected with the Holocaust was that the Jewish population in England was forced to wear 2 yellow felt bands in the centre of their chest whenever they went out to identify them as Jews, which was really reminiscent of the yellow Star of David, which the Jews were forced to wear in Nazi Germany. The second one was the blood libel. It was in England that up to around about 1250, the blood libel was a myth. It was not established as fact. But from 1255, there was a death of a small boy in Lincoln, and the king and the church, the crown and the church, actually declared that the Jews had actually murdered this boy and used the blood as part of a ceremony, and then declared that this was fact, and that blood libel then spread throughout whole of Europe as a fact, and was taken on board by the whole of Europe, citing this little boy in Lincoln. And then the third element was that England had its own solution for how to deal with the Jews. We know the Jews, the Nazis, had their final solution, but England had its own solution in 1290, where the King Edmund I, he actually issued an edict that expelled all the Jews, and they were given just a few months in 1290 to pack up all that they could carry and then leave, dispossessed of everything.
So let's have a look now as we remember International Holocaust Memorial Day and the Holocaust.
Today, we remember. Today, we pause the daily routine of life and remember the past. A past encompassing the horrors of genocide. On January 27th, 1945, Auschwitz, the largest Nazi death camp, was liberated by the Red Army. Years later, the world stops to commemorate the victims of this tragedy.
And that's just a reminder of how horrific the actual Holocaust was. Mike, it's incredible to think that over 6 million Jewish lives perished at the hands of the Nazis on an industrial scale. Nothing has happened like it before in history. And we know that something like this could happen as we go through the prophecies in the book of Revelation. But how important is it that Christians make a difference? Because it was the Christians, so many Christians in Germany, apart from the likes of Bonhoeffer, were very silent when the Nazis took over. They introduced the Nuremberg laws. They were silent then. Then we had Kristallnacht as well, when all the Jewish synagogues were burnt right across Germany, Jewish homes destroyed, shops destroyed, many Jewish people taken into concentration camps. Why do you think the church was so silent at that time?
I don't know. Is the honest answer. I don't know why they were silent, but there's no doubt that they were, with the exception, as you say, of people like Bonhoeffer, who were prepared to stand up and be counted. And the question that begs an answer really in respect of how would we react in those situations, and it goes back to my previous answer in relation to remembering the Holocaust. I'm so pleased that in Germany, for example, it's a criminal offence to deny the Holocaust, which is wonderful. But in this country, it isn't, and we need to. What really bothers me as well is there are many churches, many good, God-fearing Christian people, who actually don't believe that Israel should have a homeland, who actually say that. That they side with the Palestinian argument and believe that Israel is an apartheid state. So there's a lot of prejudice now in our own country that beggars belief.
No, absolutely. And Tim, we're living in a time now where the remaining Holocaust survivors are dying out, sadly. So what are your thoughts on how important it is to keep Holocaust education alive, that we remember what happened during the Holocaust over 80 years ago and it's passed on to the next generation?
Yeah, absolutely. There's around about 175 Holocaust survivors still living today, and their stories still being told by themselves as people. But as they pass away, and many of them are in their 80s and 90s, that we're going to lose that oral tradition, that oral witness. And it's so important. We've seen in the seeds of the Holocaust were seen right back through the ages. And it's so important that we almost carry the baton for them, so that we don't allow those seeds to grow and fester and flourish, and then suddenly bear the fruits of this terrible Holocaust in the 1900s and the Nazi Germany that we actually saw. So, and it's our responsibility to keep telling that message, so that there is no repeat of the horrors that we saw to a nation that we actually saw.
Mike, can you share with us what ICEJ UK is doing to help combat anti-Semitism, and also what you mentioned earlier, what is now known as anti-Zionism?
Well, what are we doing? Our mandate really is to comfort Israel, to teach truth, and to confront hatred. Now, one of the things that we've done in the past, and the pandemic has actually put a halt to this, is we've held Celebrate Israel evenings, and we've involved the Jewish community and the Christian community, and had speakers from both sides. And teaching truth is another aspect to our mandate, and to teach truth this coming year is going to be very exciting, because we've established several conferences throughout the country. We've got conferences taking place in Lincoln, where Tim's from, and down to Southampton, London, the West Midlands, up in Wigan, where I'm from, and in Scotland. Haven't got anything in Wales yet, so if anybody out there can help us with that, I'd love to hear from you. Yeah, so there's a lot going on, but confronting hatred is something that we must all do, and we must be prepared to stand up and be counted.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more with you on that one. So let's have a look now at what ICEJ UK is doing to combat anti-Semitism, but also to support Holocaust survivors.
It was 6 million people. They have not a grave. Also my parents, also all my family. So it is a little bit what I can do for them. And if I thinking so many people, they have not a place we can pray for them.
Yom HaShoah. In English it means Holocaust Memorial Day. On this day at 10 o'clock, Israel comes to a complete standstill. And for about 2 minutes, while the sirens sound, people stop and remember the 6 million Jews that were murdered during the Holocaust. While remembering a very dark time in the history of the world, there is a place that shines forth the light of hope. I'm standing here in front of the ICEJ Haifa Home for Holocaust Survivors, where we have gathered together with many Holocaust survivors, their families, dignitaries, soldiers, students, in order to honor all those lives that were lost during the Holocaust.
In this day, if they want or don't want, they have to talk, they have to listen, and it's very, very hard for them. So we support them and we hug them and we love them. And this is one of our main goals in this place.
About 2-3 years, all the Holocaust survivors will disappear. This is our mission to tell the story of the Holocaust. Just is the one reason that I volunteer here more than 25 years. Holocaust, not just one day, for all the life.
Sometimes people say that Israel is separated. Nobody loved us around the world. But this is just empty talks. we can see day by day that Christians around the world support Israel, support the Jewish nation. They, exactly like us, believe that this is our land, believe that our history was hard enough, so we need to be strong today. I want to take those Christians. They are, from my point of view, part of the family, our big family. You know, our family could be even bigger and united without those 6 million that get murdered, but we won with a lot of friends, Christians, friends around the world that give us the support that we need. Believe me, everybody, if we just remember to put a small smile on our face and remember that we all are human beings in this beautiful land, we will all have a better future together.
When I came to this place, it was surprised for me to see how many people all over the world love Israel. Because here in Israel, we just hear about people that hate us and don't love us and want to kill us. And when I see ICEJ with the groups that they bring to this home, I was very surprised. It's very special, and I didn't know it, and I tell it everybody that the Christian embassy is our family, and we are friends, and without them we couldn't exist, and we cannot help these people. So thank you very much, ICEJ. You are doing a wonderful work. You are giving wonderful helping, and we thank you very much.
We are so thankful for every donation that we receive for our unique Haifa home for Holocaust survivors. We can keep the doors open and provide for these 70 residents only because of your donations. Do not miss your opportunity to show your love and support for the remaining days of their lives. Give today. Donate to icej.org/Haifa and click on the donate button. Thank you so much.
And it's so nice to know that those elderly Holocaust survivors are being looked after and treated so well in Israel, thanks to the help and the ministry of ICEJ UK. Tim, can you just explain to us how ICEJ UK will actually be marking International Holocaust Memorial Day on Thursday, the 27th of January this month?
Yes, we'll be marking it in England with an event at Billinge Family Church on the 30th of January, where there is an open event and with a keynote speaker, basically the Holocaust, which is Stephen Jaffe, from the giving the perspective of the Holocaust from the Jewish perspective. So that's an open event, open to all, which will be a great evening for all. So that can be put in the diaries for folk who want to attend.
Excellent. And Micah, you've got quite an amazing story regarding your father, his involvement in Holocaust education, served in the Second World War. Share with his role he played in the whole policy that the Americans and British developed called the denazification of Germany, also of Japan as well.
Yeah, the denazification program was an initiative of the Allies, of the US and Britain, in Germany to educate the German populace, to eradicate Nazism and the Nazi ideology. As far as the US troops are concerned, there's an amazing story of the population of Weimar being taken to Buchenwald, and you can see this on YouTube. They're taken to Buchenwald, and it's as though they're going for a picnic. They're smiling and laughing, and then they see the horrors of Buchenwald, and there's a complete transformation. And there's one woman faints to see what's occurred there. I won't mention it because it's too horrific, some of the stuff that went on. And my dad was a regular soldier. He actually joined the army as far back as 1927. Wow. He ran away from home and lied about his age, and he was a sergeant major during the war. And after the war, he was on the British Army on the Rhine, and he was, one of his tasks was to take the German public to the cinemas to see footage that was taken of the liberation of Bergen-Belsen. It was he told me that it had a profound effect on people because most of the people were totally ignorant of what the Third Reich was actually doing. And as I said before, it's very pleasing to know that there's an acknowledgement by Germany of the sins of the past, and the fact is that the Holocaust denial is a criminal offence.
Yeah, very much appreciate that. And Tim, can you just share with us, for example, what ICEJ is doing in Israel to help Holocaust survivors with the Home for Survivors and the programmes and the food and everything else that's been organised?
Yeah, that's right, Simon. They, ICEJ UK are partnering with other agencies in Israel to run what's called the Haifa Home for Holocaust Victims, and which is an assisted living community to actually give them a community where friendship and love and provision, where there's about 50 of them Holocaust survivors actually in that home, and ICEJ UK actually through their generous donations actually help support that work. And I think this year we've actually managed to date provide about £30,000 towards the running of that work, which is, we give thanks for the generosity of supporters. And recently they're putting an extension onto the Haifa Home, because obviously as more the elderly residents become more have medical needs, it's more high dependency unit is being built, and I think that's due to open. And also with the pandemic, many of the Holocaust survivors throughout Israel are housebound, and that enhances that sense of loneliness and almost a flashbacks to that loneliness and isolation which they experienced because they lost so much during the Holocaust. So a call centre was established, which ICJ works with and helps support throughout the whole of Israel, where the residents are given a telephone call just to see how they are, their medical needs, if they need to go to a doctor, they're transported there, any food parcels, and also taken for their shots, actually carried to have their vaccines as well. And just to reinforce the fact that they're not alone. I think that's so important, that this call centre and the volunteer system that's set up there is to reinforce that they are no longer alone.
Excellent. So let's have a look at this ICEJ UK report that looks into this Haifa Home for Holocaust survivors.
You know, when we talk about home, the first association is to speak about family. And this home indeed has become family for the survivors. It all started in 2010. Shimon Shabak, who directs today this house, he had a small soup kitchen here in this neighborhood. And he saw that Holocaust survivors were coming to his soup kitchen, and he felt if there are needy Holocaust survivors, we need to do something about it. And he asked us to come, and he showed us a small apartment where he wanted to host 13 Holocaust survivors. He said, can the Christian Embassy help us to purchase that building? I looked at the entire building, which was a 4-story building. I felt the Lord talk to me, and I said, Shimon, why don't we buy the entire house? I was driving away from Haifa and I thought, oh my gosh, what did I do? And how do we ever get this money together? I was pleading with the Lord, please help us. We have 5 months time to get the money together. For me, the biggest miracle was to see within 2 weeks people were sending us so much money like never before, that after 2 weeks we could purchase that building. And within those 5 months which we had, we could even purchase 2 buildings.
אני רואה גם שיש פה יד אלוהים במקום הזה. וללא המרקם בין השגרירות הנוצרית ליד עזר לחבר, המקום הזה לא יכל להתפתח. אז אני רואה בזה, במדרגה ראשונה את הדבר הטוב ביותר שקורה, ולא סתם באים לפה בני נוער, חיילים, שהם שומעים שנוצרים, הם מחזיקים את המקום, הם מתנדבים במקום, זה מראה שאפשר גם את ההיסטוריה לשנות בצורה טובה, והשגרירות הנוצרית היא דוגמה לכל הנוצרים בעולם, איך אפשר לעשות דברים אחרת, ואתם עושים את זה גם ככה.
what I could see is that this house is providing an inner healing to those people to deal with their past in a positive way. You know, as a German, to see this home, and it's very humbling in many ways. You come from a country which wrote the darkest chapter of Jewish history, and today to be here and to see that you are able to open a new page in the life of the Jewish people, it's very touching. People from all over the country, they are applying, we want to be at the home for Holocaust survivors. And the very sad story for me is that many of them we have to tell, no, we don't have the finances to add more people to it. So it's really my vision that by the end of this year, even we have 100 people here, or that we can expand this house here in this next few years, even for a couple of 100 survivors. Time is running out in Israel, and we need your help to continue this operation here in Haifa and even to expand it. The keys are in your hand. Please help us to open the door and welcome them home.
And this shows us the incredible home that in Haifa, which is in the north of Israel, to help and assist Holocaust survivors. Mike, can you share with us some of the incredible testimonies of some of these survivors? Because having had the privilege of interviewing so many survivors, not only are their stories gripping, but these are absolutely fabulous individuals and fabulous people.
Well, yes, I've met one or two Holocaust survivors in Israel. And I mean, I'm sure many of your viewers have seen the film Schindler's List, which tells the story of Oskar Schindler and the amazing work he did in Krakow, rescuing Jewish people from the hands of the Nazis, right under the nose of the Nazis. It was an incredible story. And a few years ago, I was in Israel and I met a man called Nucham Monderer. The picture that I had of Nucham was him standing by Oskar Schindler's grave. And Nucham was one of the workers in Schindler's factory. And the look on his face when he stood by the graveside really affected me, because you can see that he's dwelling on everything that went on with Oskar Schindler. He told me what a human being he was. He's a man of great compassion. He wasn't perfect, but he had a great compassion, and he used to look after these people. And I've actually got a copy of Schindler's List, which has got hundreds and hundreds of names on it. And it actually validates his inclusion in the Righteous Among the Nations. Another story I can tell you is of a lady. Two ladies were with me on when I took a tour to the Feast of Tabernacles. And we were in this very nice hotel. And that year I'd been to Auschwitz, and I'd been talking about it at the dinner table. And they were in the lift going back to their room. And one lady said to the other, "I've never been to Auschwitz." And there was a little old lady in the corner of the lift, and she rolled her sleeve up to show the number on her arm and said, "I have." There are lots of stories like that. I can go on, but I know we're stuck for time.
No, they're so important stories, very important. Tim, can you also share with us how ICEJ UK is making a big difference in the lives of these Holocaust survivors, and the difference that they make by making them feel like they're not alone, and providing them entertainment, and providing them with visitors, and providing them with food, and really making them feel very special?
It's actually immeasurable, totally immeasurable. None of us can imagine what it's like to actually lost absolutely everything. Loved our immediate family, lost our extended families, lost our friends, lost our neighbourhoods, lost everything that connects us to who we are. We just can't imagine that. But the initiatives, the Haifa Home and presenting all these opportunities to give them a home, a community, is to somehow, it cannot replace all that, but it gives them an identity of love, of acceptance and warmth that they can actually start to almost to live again. But even though in their great loss, they actually have hope again for the future and hope for their lives.
And Mike, it's so important, isn't it, as Christians, particularly the remaining Holocaust survivors. And I believe you said just before we showed one of those videos that around 170,000 still left in Israel, that we comfort them, we love them, we show them support and make them feel that they're not alone. And many of them that have come from the former Soviet Union, for example, have no family in Israel.
That's right, and it's so important that we actually reach out to them. And Tim's already mentioned the wonderful work that's being done by the Home, and but that's only a small percentage of the people who have survived the Holocaust who are in Israel. But the call centre that Tim also mentioned is only a couple of blocks away from the Haifa Home. That actually is doing a great job in keeping in touch with people, but also there's ICEJ Aid is going out and giving people food parcels, because a lot of these people are on the breadline, and it's such a tragedy when you consider where they've come from and what they've been through.
And Tim, also, can you just share with us the kind of reactions of ordinary Israelis as well as the Israeli Prime Minister to this vital work being done by ICEJ UK?
Yeah, we've seen some of the video clips. It's just absolute gratitude that actually people are out there, you know, for people who they think don't love them, that actually do love them, that care for them, that want to befriend them, and want to befriend them as in Israel as a nation, and to provide for those in great need in that nation. And we saw in the Feast of Tabernacles this year, Prime Minister Naftali and President Herzog actually give thanks, thanking the nations and thanking International Christian Embassy Jerusalem for primarily their friendship. And that's really one of the key things, that we are the friends of Israel, and the Holocaust survivors have got friends around the world, you know, in an extensive network, and that just is that just gratitude of love for the love that is shown to them.
Mike, what the scripture that really strikes me when we discuss the Holocaust and what happened only 3 years later was the re-establishment of the modern state of Israel is Ezekiel 37. I just read a section of it. It says, "The dry bones live. The hand of the Lord came upon me and brought me out in the spirit of the Lord, sat me down in the midst of the valley, and it was full of bones. Then he caused me to pass by them all around, and behold, there were very many in an open valley. And indeed, they were very dry. And he said to me, Son of man, can these bones live? So I answered, O Lord God, you know. And again he said to me, prophesy these bones and say to them, O dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. Thus says the Lord to these bones, surely I will cause breath to enter into you, and you shall live. I will put sinews on you and bring flesh upon you, cover you with skin and put breath in you, and you shall live. Then you shall know that I am the Lord." So isn't this a kind of fulfillment of prophecy, that 3 years after the most horrendous chapter in world Jewish history with the Holocaust, 6 million Jews murdered on industrial scale by the Nazis, and then 3 years later, these dead bones become alive, and we see the re-establishment of the modern state of Israel?
Yeah, I have an affinity with the state of Israel because we were both born in the same year. But God's timing isn't an accident. If, hypothetically, if the UN was asked today to vote for a state of Israel in the Middle East, they wouldn't do it. But following the Holocaust, there was sympathy for all these poor people who had been through so much, and the vote was passed, despite the fact that Britain abstained. Can these dry bones live? Can a nation be born in a day? Well, the answer is yes. The promises of God are yes and amen. The fact that we've seen that prophecy fulfilled in our lifetime, and that we're seeing further prophecy fulfilled, because there's people coming back to Israel via Aliyah from the north, the south, the east and the west. It just tells me that God keeps his promises. And that's really good for us Christians, because there are promises to us as well, aren't there?
Absolutely.
You know, if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you shall be saved. Now that's a promise worth hanging on to.
Definitely. And if God is faithful to Israel, then it will be faithful to us, which is incredible. Tim, do you want to also share, the prophecy unpacks about, in Ezekiel 37, after the dry bones are revived, there is a nation again. It talks about being a strong, mighty army. And today, Israel has not only the most powerful army in the Middle East, but one of the most powerful armies in the world. And Israel is it not, the answer to anti-Semitism? Because without the Jewish state, how many Jewish people would have perished throughout the last 70 plus years?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we've had 2,000 years of a nation, a group of people who have been scattered throughout the world and being slaughtered and murdered en masse at the whims of those nations, and with nowhere to go. And that's an incredible thought. There is no safe place in the world during those 2,000 years that they could take refuge. But with this re-establishment of Israel and the establishment of them as a strong military power, they now have got a home that they can call home, that is safe, that is secure, and they're protected from those nations that would have sought to destroy them. And no wonder why that when those planes touch down from those nations where Jews even today are suffering persecution, where they can escape that persecution and touch down in the land of Israel, and they step out from their planes, no wonder why there is an immense joy and dancing and tears as they set foot on the land that God promised their forefather Abraham, and the land where they're going to live forever.
Amen. That was a mini sermon in that one, Tim, so thank you for that one. And Mike, can you also share with us, we've got 5 minutes left of the programme, the event being organised in Wigan with Stephen Jaffe to actually mark International Holocaust Memorial Day that's taking place on Sunday the 30th of January.
Well, yeah, it's as Tim's already mentioned, I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be a good event. Stephen is a lovely man. He's an Orthodox Jew. He's a great friend of mine. He's stayed in my home. I like to hear what he has to say. He fully understands Christianity. He understands the different aspects of church. He understands where we're coming from. He doesn't necessarily agree with it, but I don't necessarily agree with him, but we're good friends. I look forward to the return of the Messiah. He's looking forward to the Messiah coming as well. And I think when the Messiah comes, we shall say, well, is this your first or second time? but Stephen Jaffe is a wonderful man. He's a lawyer. He's a very articulate speaker. He's highly respected in the Jewish community, and he's highly respected by ICEJ. It's going to be a fabulous event. As Tim shared, it's the Holocaust from a Jewish perspective, and Stephen said he's highly honoured to be able to come. We're hoping to record it, so if people can't make it, it's a free event, but if people can't make it, we'll put it on YouTube later.
Excellent, yeah. Stephen Jaffe's a great guy, so he's a regular on some programmes I do, so yeah, definitely. And Tim, can you share with us how important it is to support the vital ministry that ICEJ UK is doing for Israel and the Jewish people, particularly as we are living in a time where we are seeing rising Jew hatred, the likes we haven't really seen since the 1930s and 40s, and we all knew where that ended up.
Yeah, absolutely. The Jewish population, we've heard there's 170,000 still survivors of the Holocaust who are still in great need. And, you know, we've been fortunate as ICEJ UK to send at least £30,000 this year, and really it's a small fraction of actually what's needed. So we would welcome anybody's giving, however small, towards supporting that work. And through ICEJ UK, if people contact the ICEJ UK office, you can actually sponsor a Holocaust survivor in full or in part, and give that. Many of us, in our homes, we can't actually go to Israel, and many people who still can't go to Israel, and maybe not in their lifetime, what they can do, they can support what God is doing and can support these survivors throughout Israel.
And it's also important that that Christians, as you are doing, Mike, with having Stephen Jaffe at this event to mark the International Holocaust Memorial Day, is to write a new chapter in Christian Jewish relations. And the one way we can do that, isn't it, is by standing up and confronting Jew hatred where we see it, but also supporting the one and only Jewish state that happens to be the State of Israel.
Absolutely. I mean, earlier this year, when there was the problems in Gaza, when there was all the Hamas rockets coming across, I put on my Facebook post, "I stand with Israel," and I got quite a lot of feedback from that, but most of it was positive. And I think that little things like that are things that we can do. We need to stand up and be counted individually, and corporately as ICEJ. We need to say what we believe, who we stand for, and what we stand up for.
Absolutely. And 30 seconds, Tim, can you just say how vital it is that as Christians we learn from history?
Absolutely. We see right through from the medieval time that the pattern that started off as a very, very small anti-Semitic acts and thought processes became ingrained in the whole psyche of nations, which can result in things like the Holocaust and persecution today across the world. So we really need to challenge the anti-Semitism, nip it in the bud, right to our MPs where we see it happening, because we do have a voice in Parliament, we do have a voice in the nation, we do have a voice in England to protect the Jews of this land.
So Tim and Mike, thank you so much for being my guests for this month's Jerusalem Dispatch, ICEJ UK. And I want to thank you for watching this programme today. We know that the Holocaust is a horrific subject, but this is a topic that we need to talk about, we need to discuss, and we need to support the remaining Holocaust survivors as they are the last testimony to witness the horrors of what happened with the Nazis and Nazi Germany. And considering that over 6 million Jews perished at the hands of the Nazis on an industrial scale, is not only shocking, but this is something that we need to stand up and fight against. So we need to support Israel, we need to support the Jewish people, and also we've got to able and help ICEJ UK to support Israel and the Jewish people. So we'll leave you with this wonderful song as a reminder of what happened during the Holocaust over 80 years ago, dedicated to the great man himself, Oskar Schindler.